What is up, guys? I do hope you are well. My name is Mark, and today we're covering Just Know HOA. Haha, you thought I was going to say not the butthole. It was a bit flat on the Am I the Butthole subreddit, so I thought we'd try something a bit different. We've done this subreddit before, but you know, we haven't been there in a while, so let's go back there and see what's going on. If you're new here, please consider hitting that like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and all the links for joining and podcasts are down below in the description. And with that being said, let's get in to today's stories. Much love, guys. Our first story comes from Anonymous, so another throwaway account. And it isn't I'm the Butthole story, but the rest, it is a HOA story too. Here we go. Am I the butthole for going to the HOA to force my neighbour to take her frog statuette down? Recently, I, 35 female, and my husband, 34 male, and my daughter, 6 female, started to walk because of coronavirus. We've been doing the same route every day. It is about 2 miles and there aren't a lot of cars, so it's a really good route. Recently, one of our neighbours put up a frog statuette for display outside their house. I find it really creepy, and so does my husband. My daughter hates it, she's absolutely terrified of it. Now she refuses to go on walks. Earlier today, I went to the house to ask them to move the statuette, so it is no longer on display. I knocked on the door and a middle-aged man, maybe 55, opened the door. I told him the situation. He seemed sympathetic, but he said that he and his wife really like the display, so they won't be taking down the statuette. After that, I talked to my next door neighbour. He is the vice president of the HOA, so I was wondering if he could force them to take the statuette down. He said that the statuette might be a violation of the HOA bylaws. He went to look at it and sure enough, it is. Now they're being forced to take down the statuette and are being fined for violating bylaws. My husband says that I took it too far. I see it differently. The statuette is destroying the aesthetics of the neighbourhood and is scaring the children. Am I the butthole? Edit, a lot of people wanted to see a picture of the frog, so here is the link. Let's take a look. I mean, it's not that scary. As frogs go, it's not that scary. I don't know what's in the jar though. What's that about? What is inside that jar? I cannot work it out. Oh, I love HOAs, especially when they get like so petty about things like this. You have to take down the statue. It's scaring the kids. Oh, it's so good. Let's read a couple of the comments from down below. Memes and B says, you're the arsehole. It was a statue. Explain to your child not to be afraid of it. Info, can you post a picture too? We've already seen it. I want to see the nightmare frog. Edit, I saw the frog. OP, you're still very much, you're the arsehole. That frog isn't scary. Explain to your kid that you don't need to be afraid of it and move on. Running to the HOA over every problem isn't a good way to handle issues. BMAR1050 says, hijacking the top comment to say in another comment, OP says the statue was over a foot tall. A foot tall? How is that terrifying to a child? Oh dear, it's Richard says, the statue was frightening the child because kids pick up on their parents' moods. The kids saw or sensed that the parents have a stick up their behinds about a silly, harmless lawn ornament, and so the kid hated the statue too. If the parents had said, oh look, what a funny frog statue, the kid would have loved it. Right. Right, hopefully the rest of from here won't be Am I the Butthole stories. So let's move on to our next story. Our next story is from Rena Jackson. Fucking Karen. I have the biggest Karen living in my neighbourhood. So we bought our home 3 years ago. At the time of purchase, we signed a set of bylaws for the subdivision that were laid out in the 60s when the neighbourhood was being built. These rules included things like you couldn't have a separate building such as a shed, pool house, carport or garage. Now several, I would even go as far to say the majority of homes, including mine and my grandparents who moved in 77, have RV covers, carports, sheds or workshops, and the house across the street has a pool house. So needless to say, the original bylaws were never upheld. In October of 2018, we had our little girl at 26 weeks and spent the next 4 months in NICU. In December, on one of the rare occasions I came home, a neighbour came with some paperwork saying there was a house renting on VRBO and it needed to be taken care of. I needed to sign this paper and get it back to her by 12/31 so she could get it filed. I ignored the issue. I don't care what someone else does with their property as long as it doesn't affect me, which this never did. The house was rarely rented out, and when it was always really quiet. I never heard anything, saw trash thrown about, etc. Anyway, apparently she gathered enough signatures to amend the original bylaws to include a ban on renting VRBO. She then took the homeowner, who lived in a different state by the way, to court, won, and I put it in the judgment that they had to sell their freaking house. So at the same time, she came up with the idea of starting a HOA. That way our neighbourhood could stay safe and be able to take care of any problems that would arise. No elaboration. October 2019, she then began collecting the signatures to add a new amendment to include forming a HOA. She and another lady in the neighbourhood, who was a notary, collected and notarized signatures. Once she believed she had 2/3 of the votes she thinks she needed, she filed the paperwork. She had been having neighbourhood meetings. I know of 19/47 homeowners who weren't notified of meetings, until I found out about one and posted a sign at the end of the entrance/exit of the subdivision. Once we all showed up at this meeting, we were informed that the HOA had passed and we were all obligated to follow the rules and pay the dues that would be determined. I, along with the other 19 homeowners, made it very clear we are not part of any HOA and would not be participating or paying any dues. Shortly after this, I received an email saying that board members would be voted on via email and $25 yearly dues were due, and I could make my check payable to her name. Other homeowners received an email saying that there was a one-time initiation fee of $115 plus the $25 yearly due, and thanking them very much for their contribution for legal fees for taking the VRBO house to court. Like, how much money has this lady got out of people? All this to say, I checked their math multiple ways: votes per lot, votes per fraction of a lot, votes per number of owners, like every stupid way possible. The only way I could think I didn't do it was by value of the home to value of the entire subdivision. Anyway, she never had over a 60% vote in favour of starting a HOA. I've called her out on it, and she refuses to acknowledge it. She is a real estate agent, and there are a couple of houses in the neighbourhood for sale. I looked at the listing and noticed that one, who signed for the HOA, has association fees of $25. The other home, who did not sign for the HOA, does not have association fees listed. She's also now, well, I'm sorry, I don't know for sure who, someone has called the city on all us heathens that won't sign the HOA. So the city has been writing warnings to almost everyone for something or another. Mine for a pile of brush left after cleaning out a flower bed, and my grass being over 6 inches. Neighbour for a stack of tiles in her driveway, another for having a ladder and an inflatable boat on a dolly in their yard, another for leaves in the ditch, and so many other crazy offences. Obviously she's calling the city because she knows HOA can't do anything, or at least she knows we know she can't do anything. My concern is she's taking advantage of the elderly in the neighbourhood that feels like the HOA is making them safe. She asked my elderly neighbour if she needs any groceries since she shouldn't be getting out with all the COVID around. My neighbour said no, she was fine. Then the lady turned and said, "Oh okay, well do you have your $25 for dues?" My neighbour's exact words were, "I gave it to her. I'm afraid of what she might do to me if I didn't." Not that she thought she was going to be physically threatened, but she thinks literally she could lose her home over not paying these bullies. Is there anything I can try to give or say to these elderly to make them not feel threatened by her or the other board members? I have plenty more details if you have questions. And this is what I kind of don't understand about HOAs, is that like, you can just go around your neighbourhood, set up like one of these little cults. If you've got enough friends, if you've got like 2/3 of the neighbourhood, you can set up a HOA and start charging fees for it. At what point can you be held accountable? Because at the moment, when I read these, it just seems like as soon as you become the leader of a HOA, you can do whatever the hell you want and get away with it and start charging people and just picking people up on petty things like leaves in your yard, man. I mean, what the hell? Mama Chairbear says, "I know some states have laws about extorting the elderly. You might want to look into that. If you can, a lawyer will help you find out if it applies here." Cringer says, "Also she's using the city inspectors to harass them." Bendy Biznatch replies, "Anything with old people being taken for money, I call adult protective services. The coming around to ask questions can be a deterrent in itself." That happens a lot replies, "All states have laws governing how HOAs are supposed to work. Honestly, I'd ask to see the notary's logbook of all the signatures and the addresses to confirm with the owners that they did in fact vote for this. Some don't keep logbooks, but there are still records of who voted yes. If you think the notary was in on it, look up the notary misconduct in your state for who you need to report it to. Also, I make my HOA checks out to Neighbourhood HOA. It's highly suspect that she wants checks made out to her. Ask for financial records immediately, and when, note I said when, she doesn't produce them, or she shows her paying herself, file a complaint against her with the real estate board. She really should know to not mix money and basic accounting. Says you get a business license for a legal entity. I guess I'd be worried she's pocketing the money and faked the signatures, all of which are fraud. A police report starts a paper trail, even if no charges are possible due to harassment. Ah, HOA, it blew me away, honestly. It's just so crazy. When it got to the part in the story where it said like all these people were getting fined for leaving like a dolly in the middle of the yard or an inflatable, and I'm just thinking, you can get fined for this? How much you have to pay for these fines? It's absolutely ridiculous. I'd hate to live under that sort of regime, you know. I mean, don't get me wrong, I look after my house and make sure it looks good, but a pile of leaves laying in your lawn? Really? Wow. What do you guys think of this story? Let me know in the comments below. Our next story is from Frugal Fishwife. HOA fined us months later for leaving a Christmas tree in our driveway over the weekend. Oh god. My boyfriend and I bought a house about a year ago. This is our first time as homeowners, and we have very little experience with HOAs. He asked me to post this and see if anyone had had similar experience / could offer any advice. At the end of January, I took down our Christmas tree. My boyfriend was in New Mexico for work and wouldn't be back for 2 days, so I left it on the side of our driveway, in a patch of rocks against our front stairs, as that was pretty much the only place we had room to leave it. It was laid down flat and honestly hardly noticeable at all. The plan was to leave it there over the weekend and then throw it in the back of his truck when he returned and dump it somewhere properly. And that's what we did. Well, 5 months later, we get a notice from the HOA saying that we've been fined $150 for having our Christmas tree out on our driveway. My boyfriend sends them an email asking them to dismiss the fine, as we're never given a warning or notice, and it was only outside for a grand total of 2 nights. They reply saying there's nothing they can do because they've sent the letter out and the notice is final. So he calls them. The lady who picks up says that the person we need to speak to is in a meeting and will call us back, but she never does. We call them twice a day for a week straight, and every time we get the excuse that she's in a meeting. My boyfriend finally tells them that he will just come down tomorrow, so that we can discuss the matter in person, since she keeps forgetting to make time to call us back. They accuse him of making dangerous threats. Seriously, he said it in the least malicious way possible, and so, not wanting to make things worse, I ask him to let it go and pay the $150. Now that he's mad that I'm giving in, and says that he's going down there tomorrow to speak to whoever this lady is and request that she dismiss the fine, as we remove the Christmas tree after the weekend. I'm genuinely confused about this whole thing. How can I find out if it's actually acceptable for our HOA to fine us over such a thing without warning us, and if it's acceptable? Is there any way for us to dispute it? Any advice is appreciated. Edit: to clarify, the tree was on our property. It was not in the street at all or partially in someone else's driveway or anything of the sort. In fact, unless you lived right across the street, you would not even notice that it was there, as my car was parked in the driveway and would block the tree from view, or anyone driving by, if that matters. Again! What the hell? You can't even have like a tree on your driveway for a couple of days before you move it. I mean, come on, man. If you live like round where I live, there's always people like chucking out stuff like an old fridge or something like that that sits there for a couple of days while people can find transport to move it from one place to the other. It's absolutely ridiculous that they can do this, and there must be like someone walking up and down the street patrolling it. How can you live like that? It's like it's some sort of regime and you've got to be under constant fear of like having the slightest thing wrong. That's absolutely insane. And $150 for that. I don't blame him for wanting to go down there and sort this out. I would be pissed off. Wow. Snowbar says, it's been in excess of 90 days between the time of violation and the notification from the HOA. Comb through your CC&Rs for any mention of statute of limitations, as well as time frame for notification of violations. Rules, lawyer, your way out of it. And basically from then that comment on, it's a lot of talk about getting lawyers involved and looking through the rule book to see how long they actually give you between sort of like the time of the violation and the time they actually fine you, because you can probably get out of it that way. But the fact that she's like ducking and not letting people come down and saying that they're threatening them to get out of that way is lame. It's shallow, man. So dodgy. But what do you guys think of this story? Let me know in the comments below. The next story comes from Chris C from RMNB. The most insane HOA. Let me set the scene for you a little before I get into the actual transgressions that I need to complain about. This is going to be a rant because I just need to tell some people about this. I live in a pretty nice middle class neighbourhood, basically right outside a large city in the western United States. It's a newer neighbourhood in the grand scheme of things, and more houses are only just being built, evidenced by an unfinished cul-de-sac down the street from me. There's a big old lake that sits in the middle of the whole thing where recreational activities occur. A small shop and go store and a bar. Those are the only three things that would guess separate us from just being purely residential area. Now we obviously have a HOA, or I'd not be here to complain. Said HOA is mandatory to join, and I was happy to do so as there was no regular monthly fees, which is something I had never experienced before. I thought that was a little strange, but soon found out why they had set it up that way. The head of our HOA is an absolutely psycho person. If he dealt massive quantities of cocaine and had murdered multiple people, I would not be surprised in the slightest. If you simply have your trash out in the slightest askew manner, he will fine you $10. I am not joking. It is the most petty shit I have ever experienced. I've received multiple $10 fines for supposed rule violations. He's the type of person that drives a gigantic lifted truck because he's obviously compensating for something. He open carries firearms. He wears flip-flops literally everywhere he goes, even in the winter. He once tried to pull over an actual police officer and detain them for supposed speeding. Him and the rest of his HOA buddies, who are all friends due to having kid around the same age, all hang out in the aforementioned bar literally every single night, like they are some sort of biker club and not a discount neighbourhood watch. One day, I had the audacity to question their fining methods at a bi-monthly neighbourhood meeting, and I was met with accusations that I must be a Russian, because this is how we do things here. I am living surrounded by insane people. This is not normal behaviour, correct? Am I not going insane? Fuck the HOA. And this is exactly what I mean when I speak about HOAs. This is what it seems like. It seems like he called it like a little biker club that always hang out in the bar in the middle of the night, and they're probably spending HOA money. He probably goes round looking for these $10 fines to boost his like bar money, you know. Little $10 fines here and there can add up pretty quickly, and it's a night out for him and the boys, him and the club. Wowzers. Let me know what you think about this story, and let's get straight into the next one. Our next story is from I Am Lenin. Fuck HOA. You didn't get to supersede the federal government, you stupid fucks. The reject hall pass monitors are at it again. We've had a number of issues with the hypocrisy of our board. Conflicts of interest to be specific. A petition went around to remove the corrupt board, but not enough votes were put into place due to her bullying residents into signing a counter petition. So now the board is going after anyone who signed the petition. The management company told the board who signed it. My wife is a Buddhist. Every place we have lived unfortunately has had a HOA, but none have ever bothered her for following her rituals. As a Buddhist, your home is your temple, where you pray. Your shoes do not come into the home. We live in an 18-unit condo complex. Each unit has a deep alcove. My wife and I leave our shoes in our alcove. This has started a shitstorm, threats of fines. We had to go to an appeal for the 4th time, and that to explain this is due to our religious observation. We pointed out the hypocrisy of the board members keeping things in common areas, where we keep our shoes and not common areas, as it is not cleaned, and they keep redefining what is common area and what is not. The president lied about who filed the complaint. We have a recording of her telling us who filed the complaint, and they signed an affidavit saying that they never complained. The rule they are attempting to enforce is very vague, up to the interpretation type rule, that changes constantly and to benefit themselves. We have a lawyer and previously gave the president a cease and desist order, so she now has her lackeys coming after us. We've spoken to everyone in the community and they are beyond angry. We informed them, both the board of directors and the community will not be paying their fines, and if they want to hurt the community by being bigoted, legal action will be taken. My edit, the reason for my title, their response when we let them know they are infringing on our rights. As far as FHA, the board is enforcing house rules. Second edit, figured I'd give you the rule they are enforcing. Nothing shall be altered, removed from, or stored in the common elements without proper written approval from the board of directors. So they have power to write the permission slip, they're just choosing to be dicks. And there were some comments down below. Someone asked, does anyone have a cross hanging on their door? To which OP replied, yes, along with a statue of the Virgin Mary on their railing. So people are expressing their sort of religious freedoms by hanging stuff on their door in common areas in their own gardens and things, and putting a Virgin Mary on the railings. Obviously because this person trying to remove the corrupt board, so obviously they are just sort of clapping back at them now. It's like become a bit of a war, which is just insane. I do love HOA stories because of that. It's like little turf wars all over the country going on. And what do you guys think of this story? Let me know in the comments below. And our next story is from Hez9023. Lost my dream home to a HOA. I just need to vent on here for a second. I'm honestly feeling so depressed. After months of searching for an affordable home for myself and my dog, I finally found one. It was my dream home. It had an open floor plan, nice floors, a loft with a balcony, a nice deck, and my dream kitchen. It was even within my price range. I have a £55 dog and I've never had issues with her as a renter, but she has the energy and needs a yard. So I put in an offer before reading the HOA documents. I know, wrong on my part, but I didn't think this would be an issue. And they accepted my offer, which was lower than asking price. Then I checked the HOA and noticed they have a £40 weight limit for dogs. I had to back out of the sale. Thankfully, I was able to get my deposit back, but I'm just burnt out from the house hunting and thought I was finally done. I was so excited and happy. I just feel complete depression right now. What is wrong with people who make these rules? I can understand a condo or townhome, but this is a single family home with a yard. Edit, I also want to add the location was amazing, within walking distance to shops, restaurants and a dog park. Here's the doggo tax. And an update on this one. So when I wrote this, I just told my realtor, hey, the HOA documents and notice dogs under £40 not allowed, so we might have to back out. To which he said he would ask nicely for our due diligence back, and if the sellers refuse, then he would give me lending credit for the same amount. Which is fine, as long as I don't lose it completely. Then he called the seller's realtor, and the seller's realtor freaked out. They had no clue there was even a restriction, stated that they've seen large pit bulls, boxers, German shepherds, mastiffs in the neighbourhood. Literally sent me an email with a list of all the houses with big dogs. I said I understand they're able to get away with the rule, but I won't be able to go through with the sale unless I have an exception of some sort that will allow my dog. My realtor and the seller's realtor asked the HOA manager about an exception. My realtor consulted a real estate lawyer who advised us on a couple of things. We needed a copy of the bylaws info and whether the declarant was involved. And there was one more update. Just kidding guys, I didn't lose the house. The HOA had no problem sending in writing an exception and the bylaws stated that was totally allowed. So finally, a decent ending to a HOA story. Maybe it's finally a decent HOA. Wow, is it even possible? Once again guys, thank you for being here. If you did enjoy the story, you know what to do. Hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff, and maybe join if you really feel like it. The time out your day is truly appreciated, and I will see you in the next one. Take care guys, much love.